The Cebu Home and Builder Center Mega Year-End Sale is here! Mega deals of up to 70% off on great selections from tile, bath, light system, hardware, and a lot more. Hurry! Grab this chance to avail of our mega discount of the year. Visit Cebu Home and Builder Center branches from November 15 to December 15 in Manila, Mactan, Consolacion, Enbacaso, and Minglanilla. Special thanks to our brand partners, Alaplana, Argenta, Baldoser, Duragres, El Molino, Fino, Fino Royal, Lux, Mulia, Sasuko, Studio, Taisera, Cool, Malcolux, Kendo, and Cool PPR. For detailed fair trade permit number R7CEB 441 series of 2020.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, December 9, 2020 here in Cebu City. I'm Sherry Ann Lim, and this is SunStar Tonight. A week before Misa de Gallo and Simbang Gabi start, Cebu City Mayor Edgardo Labella has released the guidelines for the observance of the religious activities. Kenneth Torres reports.
Unlike Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu City prohibits persons above 65 years old and those below 15 from attending Misa de Gallo. Cebu City also prohibits immunocompromised individuals and pregnant women from going to churches for the 9-day dawn masses. However, Cebu City Mayor Edgardo Labella, in an executive order issued on Wednesday, temporarily suspended the requirement of bringing the city-issued quarantine passes when leaving the house from 12:01 a.m. of December 15 until 11:59 of December 25, 2020. The number of persons allowed inside the church or area authorized to conduct Misa de Gallo should also not exceed 50% of its total capacity. Church officials will have to ensure that social distancing is observed and the wearing of face masks and face shields are mandatory. Labella also encouraged churches to live stream the Misa de Gallo for those who are unable to physically attend the Mass. The kissing or touching of image shall be absolutely prohibited, Labella said in his order. The selling or serving of food and drinks within a 50-meter radius of churches is also prohibited. Dawn Masses are only allowed between 4 to 6 a.m., while anticipated masses at night or Simbang Gabi will be permitted only between 5 to 9 p.m. The police, military, and barangay officials were directed by Labella to enforce his executive order. Kenneth Torres, SunStar Tonight.
Cebu City Councilor Alvin Dizon has asked Mayor Edgardo Labella for his accomplishments in the fight against COVID-19. Earlier, Labella had criticized the city's opposition bloc over its scrutiny of the city's 2021 budget. Mildred Galarpe reports.
The next election is still a distance away, but already a word war between Cebu City's executive and legislative officials is brewing. In a privileged speech on Wednesday, Dizon asked Labella to account for his whereabouts and actions at the height of the city's fight against COVID-19. Dizon asked if the mayor was visible enough, then why did President Duterte send Secretary Roy Simato and retired General Melquiades Feliciano to stabilize the COVID situation in the city? Dizon further said if the mayor was truly effective in handling the COVID crisis, then why was Cebu City on enhanced community quarantine for 2 months? Reacting to Dizon's speech, Labella said the national government intervened not only in Cebu City, but in other local government units in Luzon, Visayas, and recently Mindanao. He said the high number of COVID-19 cases in the city were due to the city's aggressive testing of its residents. The verbal exchange between Dizon and Labella was fueled by Labella's request for a 30 million budget for his intelligence funds. Dizon called Labella's request as immoral. The councilor also said Labella's 2021 proposed expenditures is not pandemic responsive. Hitting back at Dizon, Labella questioned the whereabouts of opposition councilors when the city was on total lockdown. Labella then enumerated what he said were achievements of councilors under his party at the height of the pandemic. The budget deliberation has yet to conclude, as with a word war that seems not about to end soon. Mildred Galarpe, SunStar Tonight.
The National Bureau of Investigation has arrested one of the suspects in the ambush killing of lawyer Joey Luis Wee. Romain Rivera reports.
2 weeks after Attorney Wee was killed in broad daylight in Cebu City, agents of the National Bureau of Investigation arrested Fausto Edgar Peralta, one of 5 suspects. Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara said Peralta was tracked down in Laguna, Metro Manila on Tuesday. NBI Deputy Director Ferdinand Lavin confirmed the arrest but gave no further details pending further investigation. Wee, who used to be one of the lawyers of the Office of the Solicitor General, was shot dead outside his office in Barangay Kasambagan last November 23. Police Lieutenant Colonel Wilbert Parilla, head of Task Force Wee, said they are waiting for the NBI report to validate if they have the same suspects in the murder of Wee. Parilla said their investigation also identified 5 possible suspects in the lawyer's killing. On Thursday, NBI Deputy Director Lavin will arrive in Cebu from Manila to turn over the suspect to local investigators. The Integrated Bar of the Philippines in Cebu City has assured that it will provide all the necessary assistance to ensure immediate justice for Wee.
SunStar Tonight will be right back after this short break.
Personnel of the Land Transportation Office Central Visayas have arrested close to 100 motorists for various violations at the Trans-Central Highway in Cebu City. The violations include illegal installation of accessories on motorcycles, no official receipt and certificate of registration, failure to wear helmet while driving, no plate number, no driver's license, illegal alteration of the motorcycle's exhaust pipe, and broken brake lights. In his Facebook page, LTO Regional Director Victor Caindic said a large number of motorists were at the Trans-Central Highway during their operation. The scenic highway, which spans 52.8 kilometers from Cebu City to Balamban Town, has become a favorite spot for many motorists, especially on weekends and holidays.
Joining us to tell us more about the traffic violations we should avoid so we can have a Merry Christmas is Land Transportation Office Central Visayas Director Victor Caindic. Sir, last November 29, LTO personnel apprehended some 74 violators on the Trans-Central Highway in Barangay Malubog, Cebu City for various violations. So some were not wearing a helmet, some didn't wear their seatbelt, some didn't have a driver's license. The others had broken brake lights, and the others altered their exhaust pipes. And there were those who did not bring their official receipt and certificate of registration, and still others illegally installed accessories on their motorcycles. And there were also those who failed to secure a vehicle's plate. So, sir, more or less, what are the fines for these violations? How much would it cost violators?
Well, the key thing that people always should remember about driving, especially on public roads, is that there's a myriad of regulations that they have to follow, no? And across these different violations, so to speak, are what you call a graduated scheme of fines. So in as much as I'd like to give you a figure on a specific fine, it may be that that person has already made a second offense, which means that the fine is probably bigger than the original offense, and could also subject the person to, let's say, a suspension of license. So I always refrain from quoting out the the specific cost of the fines. But perhaps the better discussion that I'd like to bring to the table is really understanding what people need to be aware about so that they can, let's say, avoid the hassles of being flagged down and getting fined. No? Number one, people must always remember that our laws require that they cannot drive their vehicles without being properly licensed. And therefore, when they get behind the wheel of a vehicle, and our law, for whatever reason, has been there since the 60s under RA 4136, the law is very, shall we say, all-encompassing because it says that if you drive a vehicle with wheels and powered other than human force, it is subject to registrations. And therefore, any vehicle subject to a registration is now subject to the user to a driver's license requirement. So that is the principle behind why LTO exists. We enforce what we would call the road regulations that govern how people use our streets, our roads. What are the common things that, uh, shall we say, comprise the majority of apprehensions? It starts with four-wheel vehicles, no? Usually, many people don't wear seat belts. They perhaps don't realize that it's a universal law already that if you get behind a vehicle, a four-wheel vehicle, then you have to wear seat belts. For those driving motorcycles, they must wear helmets. Apart from being aware that your registration is updated, that you have a driver's license, then the basic concept of road safety is anchored in these two principles: having seat belts, drive four-wheel drive vehicles or vehicles with more than two wheels, and if you drive a motorcycle, that you must have a helmet. Eventually, it graduates to various other violations, which include vehicle modifications or what we would call driving-related offenses. Normally, this had been lumped under reckless driving, no? So the way people maneuver, they go cross double solid yellow lines, or they drive recklessly that they endanger others. Those fall under reckless driving. Although there are more specific offenses that they are apprehended for. Um, Other things, we've seen people not realizing that defective brake lights could also get you apprehended, or defective headlights could get you apprehended, or taillights. No, some people, they say, my car is just 3 years old. I didn't realize that the back of the vehicle has one busted taillight, and I should not be apprehended. It's not the role of LTO to remind people that if you get behind the wheel, you must understand that it is your responsibility to make sure that the vehicle you're driving will not also compromise the safety of others. So it's really a principle of of having that responsibility as a driver, and knowing well that the vehicle that you drive would also impact on the safety of others on the road. And that is perhaps, while it's a simple principle, many people forget that we are all responsible for these things. It's not just LTO getting you apprehended and then you get to remind yourself that that's your responsibility. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Regarding installation of illegal accessories, what are considered illegal accessories?
The principles behind what you call the department circular, which embodies the regulations for those violations of what is now classified as illegal modifications, are also based on three principles. One, that affects the integrity of the vehicle that is being modified. It affects the safety or safe use of the vehicle being modified. And there is a modification that impacts the environmental footprint of that vehicle being modified. So if you notice, again, it's all based on principles, but then we go to specifics. For example, if people put aftermarket mufflers, while generally speaking, the installation of aftermarket mufflers become a necessity because over time, the mufflers, they get they break down and they become defective. So it also affects the performance of the vehicle. But if you replace a muffler, for example, you must make sure that the muffler conforms to environmental standards. What are these? The noise level. No, people don't realize that noise levels are actually defined by law. So in the case of aftermarket parts for mufflers should not exceed 115 decibels. No? What are the other things that affect muffler modifications? The emission, no? The emission of vehicles where the mufflers are modified, they must make sure that the catalytic converters, no, the device that is attached to that exhaust system, does not compromise the quality of the air, no, that is being filtered through that catalytic converter. And then you see, this very irritating blinking lights that flash when people step on their brakes. That is illegal. Some people argue that it's a safety feature, no? But like I said, it's not LTO that defines all these things. The regulations are usually coming out of department orders, which are sometimes collated by various other departments. When you register, for example, a new vehicle, a new motorcycle, it is the DTI, or the Department of Trade in the Industry, the DNR, LTO, and even customs that's puts together the prerequisite requirements so that these vehicles are accepted, or in international terms, it's homologated. So we implement these orders because these are written to be such. No, we don't formulate these regulations on our own. We always have reference points. Again, LTO is an implementing agency. It is not a policy making organization.
For those who commit violations, they will pay for the penalties only at the LTO office. There is no other avenue like a bank, or they cannot do it digitally through GCash or PayMaya or any other online channels.
That's a very good question and a very good point that you raised, because I think that the facility to make these innovations happen has to start with having a system that connects seamlessly to the banking system that is already online. No? LTO central office and the entire LTO system across the Philippines is being modernized under a program called the Land Transportation Management System, or LTMS migration. But that will take some time. And for example, in Region 7, we have about 8 pilot areas that are already going through the pilot testing for LTMS. The most recent office that we opened in Karkar, the new office where we relocated our old Karkar office, is in an LTMS pilot system. Cebu City District Office, which we opened and transferred in Robinson's Galleria, is also migrating very soon to the LTMS system. So I think these innovations will eventually come into place once the right system is fully implemented. It's like having an old cell phone. No? When you use that old cell phone with the keyboard, the keypads, there's very little things that you could do with it. But when you have your Android or iOS phones now with the touch screens, there's a lot of interface that can be done around it, and we can use apps, no, to interface with our programs in our phone. So that is already being worked on. In some services, and I already started talking, for example, to a payment system company called PayMaya for a few other services that we want to connect with them. No, but the thing with government is that we have to make sure that the agreements we enter into are properly authorized. That we get to seek the approval of other oversight bodies and agencies, because otherwise we'd get into trouble. But um, you are correct in the sense that there's a lot of things that can still be done in terms of reduced human interface, reduced point of contact, and other things that we can do to make our agency services.
Regarding not securing a vehicle's license plate, are there no more backlogs in the LTO 7 in the release of license plates, whether for motorcycles or four-wheeled vehicles?
I don't think that the issue on apprehensions, on what people would have considered plate violations, uh, may not be properly interpreted in the context, no, of what we want to um, people to comply with. No, number one, the four-wheel vehicle plates are coming in progressively. So we have our plate distribution system at SMC side. At some point, we had 54,000 plates and only 2,000 were being claimed. No? So that's one issue. In as much as we have 54,000 plates at one point, I'm not saying that today that's still the case. But imagine you had 54,000 plates at one point and only 2,000 were being claimed. So it puts pressure not just on the agency, but also the system itself to say, why are we accelerating the issuance or production of new plates and people are not claiming it? So we had to put some intervention that's making sure people understand that if they have vehicles that are already available, no, that the plates of their vehicles are already available, they should find time to claim it. On the
Sir,
other hand, yeah, on the other hand, sorry to cut you. On the other hand, the issue is not about the plates. The issue is about whether the vehicles that are running are properly registered or not. And if it is properly registered, that we must be able to find a way to identify that vehicle when the need arises. So it is important that while it may be possible that their plates are not still available, that they must still comply with the requirements for proper identification with the vehicles, because really it's a crime prevention thing, no? And it makes people less accountable if they can get away with running their vehicles without plates or without identifiers rather.
sir, do law enforcement officers get a commission or an incentive out of every ticket they give to violators?
Oh wow, that's a very fantastic question because I want people to hear the answer. We don't get anything, not the enforcers, not the agency. You know, Ma'am Cherry, the agency of LTO, we collected in Region 7 last year 1.88 billion. The year before that, we collected 1.68 billion. Out of those collections, 92.5%, or what is called the road user tax, goes to the Department of Public Works and Highways. The remaining 7.5% goes to the Department of Transportation, for which LTO is just one agency under the OTR. So there's this misconception that when LTO goes into an operation, our people get a certain commission from it. No, that's far from the truth. In fact, there is really very little incentive on the part of the agency to go apprehend a lot of vehicles because, um, especially in the age of social media, we get the flack for implementing the law. But there's no incentive, not a single cent, that guarantees that it goes back even to the region that collected those fines.
Sir, you recently announced that drug tests will no longer be required for those applying for and renewing their driver's license in Central Visayas. So now, according to the Anti-Drunk and Drug Driving Act of 2013, the LTO will just conduct random tests of public utility drivers. So does that mean there will be no random tests for drivers of private vehicles?
Well, the Anti-Drunk and Drug Driving Act has very specific implementing rules and regulations. While the program mandates that there are random testing for public utility vehicle drivers, it does not stop the agency from implementing such law to the private sector or to private vehicle owners and drivers. But again, a very specific set of rules exist. No? And why is that important? Because we don't, I think the intention of the law and the intention of the implementing rules want to make sure that that is not being abused, no? That power to flag down a vehicle simply on the basis of a mere suspicion could be used, no, and abused in the wrong hands. So in Region 7, for example, we have been extensively working to capacitate our enforcers. No, we have reached out, for example, to one of the presidents of the IBP chapters and reaching out to some lawyers to help us craft a some sort of a dummy for enforcers guidebook with specific focus on the implementation of the Anti-Drug and Driving Act. There are very specific steps, no? For example, an alcohol test should only be conducted after we have validated on a field sobriety test, which can only be conducted if we do several things as conditions, not to properly implement it. In fact, we have already procured body cameras. We completed the training of our body cameras for our enforcers just last week. And these body cams are also very important prerequisites for the enforcers to be able to implement the Anti-Drug and Drunk Driving Act.
Sir, who will pay for the drug test? Is it the driver or the LTO?
In the field tests, that's because the IRR provides very specific points, no? Like, for example, who provides for the kits, no? In the past, we've always done this together with the PDEA, or Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, and the PNP. For LTO, we are also ramping up our capacity, our internal capacity for that. And therefore, the LTO is also in the process of procuring rapid drug testing kits, but using a different methodology, because people use the normal procedure is via urinalysis, no? LTO is using an enzyme-based system. If I understand that, I'm not sure where we are in the stage of procurement, but what I do understand is that we are moving towards that methodology for testing, and we are also acquiring our own testing equipment for those things.
And with that, we'd like to thank LTO Central Visayas Director Victor Caindec for joining us at SunStar tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with you and your audience. Good evening.
Local beauty brands have been creating a buzz lately. Here's Tiffany Neri to tell us more.
Thank you, Cherry. Welcome to the end of SunStar Tonight. I'm Tiffany Neri, here to bring you a break from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Last week, we had a beauty break roundup featuring local beauty brands. BTW, I'm wearing and loving Ayana's mousse cream. It really pays to support local. And because it's so great to do that, we have our second beauty break roundup of local beauty brands you have to check out. And tonight we are focusing on the lips. So if you're looking to luxify those lips, Stain Beauty at stainbeauty.ph is worth a glance. It has a light but pigmented lip gloss formula and nourishing lip scrubs that leave the lips extra smooth. Check out their other new stuff like gift sets, sugar wax, and a collab with By Bianca Garcia's Scrunchies. Another liptastic brand is Anyag PH at Anyag Co. Organic and cruelty-free never looked so good. If you're not a glossy girl, maybe lip tints are the way to go. And your perfect day is a lip and cheek stain swipe away. Lippy dippy and super trippy is Sephora Cosmetics, a brand you can find at Sephora Cosmetics on Instagram. They have all different kinds of tints and colors. From retro gel tints to mattified nude tints, you're bound to find the one meant for you. If any of these brands have spoken to you like how I've spoken about them, what? You can catch them online, particularly on Instagram. In the meantime, follow us and stay tuned for the next roundup. This is Tiffany Neri reporting to you for SunStar Tonight. Good night.
It's 16 days to go before Christmas. To get the latest, visit www.sunstar.com.ph. Follow us on our YouTube channel and official social media accounts on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Cherry Ann Lim, and this has been SunStar Tonight. See you again tomorrow. Good night.